Back at it in ranked, and now we're up against my old nemesis mono red. Not knowing that though, I keep this hand. It's a bit sketchy because I don't have green for the Ancient Cornucopia, but double Tyrant Scorn is pretty good against most matchups, and seeing that it's red makes me 100% glad I'm doing this. No, yeah, there's a turn 2 on the mana, so before they can get any kind of Valiant trigger, I'm going to take out the Heartfired Hero. A Manifold Mouse isn't too scary on its own, so I'm going to shock in here. And I draw Symbiote Spider-Man / Skivix, which surprisingly has a huge butt. Spider-Man has a big butt apparently. And 4 toughness is a good block here, so they have to commit. Yeah, Manifold Mouse, double Manifold Mouse is very scary for anything they play of haste. However, we need to hit lands here, so if they want to trade me a Manifold Mouse here for a Skyrix, I'm okay with that. I would love to hit an untapped green. I did not, so the game is really teasing me here. I'm gonna do this because what I can do is I can wait to see what they put in off the Kimono Faces Kakusan. There's the Emberheart Challenger. Problem is, if they go to the start of their turn, they will get the Valiant triggers, which will give them card advantage, which I'm not okay with. So I'm gonna have to Helix this, but then I decide I'm gonna go for Tyrant Scorn. The reason is they could potentially have Monstrous Rage, which would put Emberheart Challenger out of the range of that Helix. There's a Reckless Rage, and this is where I screw up. I thought that if the creature Reckless Rage was targeting was gone, then we wouldn't get hit. But we did. And I believe I'm probably going to Shame Scoop after this, because it says 4 damage here. There's my green source untapped, so I'm going to have to play the Valky. And we find that they have just 2 removal spells. And now they have enough to kill this and get through. Yeah, I thought Reckless Rage was one of these cards where if you don't have both targets, the spell doesn't resolve. Turns out I was incredibly wrong, and as you saw there, I got completely blown out by it. There's a Witch Stalker's Frenzy. That's going to put us down to 5, and the Bolt there and the Ruins. Basically, it's on what I can draw here, and it's a land, so I don't have it. I'm going to remain there and say I didn't want to reveal the Ancient Cornucopias, but yeah, so aggro, we take out, I take out a few of our creatures because knowing that they potentially could have Reckless Rage effects, I don't want to give them that with Screaming Nemesis. That's my argument for the entirety of Screaming Nemesis needing to be banned. They run spells that kill their own creatures for the pure single thing that it will kill a Nemesis. So, good opening hand here. We'll go for tap land here. We don't see anything, so I'm going to hold up this push because they know that we're Niv to Light, basically, 5-color deck. They probably won't be expecting that. Good sideboard card from them with the Mage Bane Lizard. Let's get Skivix down again. 4 toughness is not a problem. They swing in here. I'm going to take it because I know you probably have burn. There's a Heartfire Hero. I'm going to attack in, see if they want to go for it. They don't, so I'm going to find a land here. Yeah, forget the Valky, I just want my lands covered. And then I'm going to Lightning Helix the Emberheart Challenger. And I'm choosing that one because that is potentially card advantage. Because, yes, the aggro deck now needs card advantage. Also, we have the Vanishing Verse, which can deal with this Heartfire Hero, as it's now become bigger and potentially going to be an issue. I'm going to swing in again, see if they want to block with Manifold Mouse. They don't. We find our land now. So now, I'm going to go with Vanishing Verse. Yeah, Lightning Helix first. I'm going to keep a Vanishing Verse around for the fear that we could see a Screaming Nemesis. There's no Screaming Nemesis there, it's a Mage Bane Lizard. I'm looking at my options here, and I'm actually going to Vanishing Verse in the end step. And I think I take out the Mage Bane Lizard here, because I want Skivix to get through and give us a clear shot here. We do have enough here to grab a Niv, but I also think that a Supreme here is pretty solid because it could also buy back our spells. However, I think our best bet here is to go for the reload. Right, with Nib's reload down, mono red player starts slowing down. Another removal spell that could kill a Screaming Nemesis. And I know a lot of people are like, wow, you put a lot of hate in Screaming Nemesis. You're bloody right, I do. I hate that card. And I think it's a stupid design. Right, so Faces flips into the Etchings. Opponent is having a think, and like I said, I'm not huge on this. Right, so they're going for double strike, and here's the thing, this is 100% clearly a Monstrous Rage play, but I'm going to take it because it's going to kill your land. Yep, there it is. We're going to take 4 trampled over, but like I said, not too bothered. So, with that in mind, I'm going to go Biotech Engineer and hold back. Manifold Mouse is going to give itself double strike. They're not attacking, so let's pop a lander token. Dome them and get a bit more mana. Looking at my options, I decided I'm just going to go with another red here. Let's take another Biotech Visionary here. I'm going to swing in with a Skivrix here. If they want to block and try to blow me out, I'm okay with that. Take another Vanishing Verse because it answers another potential problematic permanent. Right, there they go for double strike. They go in for the attack here. And I'm going to double block the Etchings. They go for Monstrous Rage on the Manifold, so in response I will Vanishing Verse. And yep, that's the downside of your burn deck being all pump spells. If you know your opponent has the removal, you can't deploy them. That's another reason if you're in this position, don't tap out against mono red, because hasty, valiant, Monstrous Rage creatures can ruin your day. Alright, third and final game here. Looking at this board, and I'm going to keep it. We do have a Tyrant Scorn, Cavero the Mind Bitten. Right, there's a Manifold Mouse again. So I'm going to pass back and see what they deploy first. There's an Urabrask's Forge. So I'm happy I saved this Vanishing Verse. We'll get rid of that. That's a good sideboard card. Well, it would be a good sideboard card because it obviously doesn't answer the removal, but they saw that we had Vanishing Verses in our deck. I guess they just bet on us not having it at that moment. Right, they swing in with Manifold Mouse. I'm just going to Tyrant Scorn here. There's no point to take this damage right now. If they deploy something else, which is a Sunspire Lynx, yep. Right, then let's go land into Supreme Verdict, get rid of that. Opponent then plays faces. Commander faces Kakusan. Top decker Niv. Yeah, well, you know what time it might be. But actually, first, I want to go with the Bring to Light here. And I'm going to go with Supreme, because I'm pretty sure they're holding removal. And I think the ability to get back 2 things that kill a Tyrant Scorn is way more important to me. This is adamantly transmitting that they have the Monstrous Rage here, and I'm happy to take it and go down to 6. So I'm not going to attack, I'm going to pass back, because the Monstrous Rage drops off here and they lose it. We only have 1 black here, so we have to be careful about what we deploy. They activate a Mutavault. They activate the Restless Village. We'll block the Mutavault here. I'm going to then Tyrant Scorn and kill the Etchings here, discarding the Biotech. If they want another Monstrous Rage, that's fine. It's 1 damage. We do lose Supreme, but they lose their land as well. And then I'm just going to cast Niv to reload. We find the key card here, which is the Lightning Helix. And we have enough to Carvero and Lightning Helix now. So the Urabrask's Forge here, we can block this, not take any damage. So check this. I'm going to play the Cavero the Mind Bitten, enter as a copy of Niv Mizzet Supreme, which gives us a jumpstart ability back. So we can swing in here, hit our opponent down to 13, then we can pass back. We have, right, there's a Lightning Strike. So they play a Heartfire Hero. This is going to be fun. Heartfire Hero. Give it Valiant and Haste to be free damage. So if this dies, we die. So now we can Vanishing Verse, discarding the Molten Collapse. Now, even if they swing in here with that, they lose. Yep, we had that one locked. Played it safe and got it against mono red. Match 2, we are up against Spirit. So, Spirits is making a bit of a comeback recently, so I should explain this to anyone new to Pioneer. Spirits is basically a combination of a control and a tribal deck. So you want tons of removal. Like, I see blue-white here and I thought it was control, but then they drop out the Mausoleum Wanderer. So, Mausoleum Wanderer has the ability to sack. It's basically like, it's a force spike on a creature. So it's a very good interactive piece, and a lot of their threats are flash speed. So you see here they play Rattle Chains. The big thing you want to prevent, it's similar to most tribal strategies where you want to keep the board as clear as possible. But one of the big things that you want to be wary of when you play against this deck is they run Curious Obsession. For those who don't know, it's in a blue enchantment that gives them the ability to hit you and gain life. Not gain life, draw a card. Everything in their deck is evasive, well, with the exception of Skycave Apparition. And card advantage in their deck is huge, so let's use the K command to make them discard. But you'll see here we have just been using removal after removal after removal just to buy time. So, lander token will pop, get another land, and we'll go from there. Right, grab Yorion here and we'll swing in for 2, see if we can bait out a flash blocker. Yeah, so the cards to be wary of in this matchup, in terms of what you'd be scared of in an opening board. Obviously a Curious Obsession setup like they're trying to set up here. There's also the Spell Queller, which adds to their clock and counters one of your spells. Basically Oblivion rings it until you can get rid of it. They run multiple lords. They run the Supreme Phantom you saw and the Bird Lord from M20. They've started incorporating Sheltered by Ghosts. Prior to most recent decks, this used to be Bant based and company based, but they've gone back to a pure blue-white list. And after sideboarding, they run a ton of interactive counterspells, which literally are kind of like mana Leak, if anyone here remembers Modern. Basically, it's 2 mana counter a spell unless you pay a required cost. The problem is, a lot of those costs are obviously expensive and we can't do anything, but also that they kind of work counter to what we normally play. We'll swing in here. Curious Obsession does have an interesting weakness. If the creature it's attached to doesn't attack, you sack the enchantment. So they've stopped drawing cards now. They are down to 6, they've gone up to 4 here. They're drawing a card, so we'll draw cards with the cycles. As I said, we've done a pretty good job game 1 here of getting rid of their lands. Not rid of their lands, sorry, getting rid of their threats. So, seeing this here, I'm going to play the Wandering Mind, because the way they survive here is they animate the Mutavault and block in, or they play an additional creature that flashes in. So let's grab the Assassin's Trophy here and go for the attack. Now they realize that if they animate the Mutavault, we Assassin's Trophy it. If they flash in the Rattle Chains, we will Assassin's Trophy it. So they realize they can't block. They're looking through a way here, but there's no way to survive this initial attack. So yeah, basically, to describe Spirits, it is a tempo control deck with the explosive speed sometimes of basically running up against mono-white humans. So imagine the disruption you can have in the humans list with Thalias and stuff like that, except instead of costing more spells, all your spells could potentially be countered, and that's Spirits. Yeah, it's a scary matchup. Okay, so this hand we're missing green, so I mulligan, and then we get hit with a ton of Verges, none of which cast spells. So we have to mulligan again, and we find Jund, but we find nothing else. So basically, there's a Mausoleum Wanderer on 1, and at that point, I'm just like, yeah, okay, we don't have the mana, and I'm going to pass it back. That was me being a little tilted, and honestly should have played that game out. Right, yeah. So we mulligan here and we find an okay opening hand. Opponent keeps 7, so we're already on. No, they kept 6, so we're on an equal footings here. An early biotech will sort out any potential land issues we could have. They have the Mausoleum Wanderer, which means that any instant of sorcery we have to back it up with counterspell magic if we can. They play a Curious Obsession, and because of the way our land has popped out, and because of the way basically because of the way I played it, I don't have the Molten Collapse here. However, odds are they probably have interaction. So they swing in for 2 here, we go down 16, they start drawing cards, which is not what we want to be. We'll use the Biotech Slander token here to do a little bit more damage. Pick up another black. And I look at my cards here and I think to myself, I should be alright with this. So, I decide I've got to try and deal with the Curious Obsession. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to force them in combat. I'm going to Helix their Mausoleum Wanderer. They try for Rattle Chain. So in response to the Rattle Chains, I'm going to hit with a Tyrant Scorn. However, they have the Spell Pierce, and that plan falls apart. So they have 2 spells to counter our 2 spells here. However, now we can use the Molten Collapse here to get rid of the Mausoleum Wanderer. And here is where I decide, when they go shields down here, they're choosing their options carefully. They have a spell, they go for Mausoleum Wanderer. So if this enters, Mausoleum Wanderer will be pumped, and then we basically will have to pay free to let this not be countered. Fortunately, we don't care, so we're going to use now the Rattle. We're going to take out the Rattle Chains because it cuts off their ability to use basically flash speed spells, unless the creatures naturally have flash. But they have drawn a lot of cards, and they are up to very high. So I'm going to try for a second Biotech here to see if I can save some time. And they have the worst card against us, which is Spell Queller, which will immediately take away our spell. So I'm going to try for the Wandering Mind, but they do have one of the Geist spells, so we have to pay free if they control a spirit, which we can't. There's a third Mausoleum Wanderer, so we are dead to anything here, and we draw Bring to Light, which is probably the worst one, but they also had another counter spell. So yeah, controlled us out of the game on those ones. Good game. Alright, Sultai Control. So yeah, this hand was crazy and I shouldn't have probably kept it. However, based on how my land situation was going, I'm totally fine with it. But we get the Thoughtseize glitch, so we immediately draw the card that we previously discarded to Thoughtseize. And since I'm not sure what kind of Sultai deck this is, I decide I'm going to use Valky to look at your hand. And I see a Sultai Demons list, which is really cool to me. So I'm going to grab Zimone and Dina, and they play the Unholy Annex here, so that's going to start hurting them. So they take 2 damage here, going down to 14. In response, I decide I need blue mana, so I'm going to get blue-green, and I'm going to play this Wandering Mind. I'm going to take the Vanishing Verse because it's a solid answer to the Annex here. Now we have to be aware that they could flash in the Fairy Mastermind. I was checking what Zimone and Dana did. It basically, if you draw your second card, you can deal, everyone loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. So it's kind of like a mini, you've got a Shield Rig at home. But it also lets you sack creatures to draw cards and put lands into play, so it's pretty cool. I'm going to Vanishing Verse here, the Annex, so they don't get any more advantage. I'm going to play the Biotech here. So, here's a fun little interaction that's going to come up in a second. Valky becomes a copy of whatever he has taken away. And he doesn't leave the battlefield to turn back. So I'm holding up the activation here, particularly because we're running into so many lands. I'm going to attack with Biotech and the Wandering Mind because it's free damage. They flash in a second Fairy Mastermind, so we can't really draw a second card here or they'll gain a ton of advantage. So they go for the Fatal Push, but we'll turn Valky because Revolt hasn't been triggered. We'll turn him into Zimone and Dina. I don't know how he becomes 2 people, but it happens. And since it's a converted mana cost free and there hasn't been a Revolt trigger, Valky will survive that kill spell. So, Lander token is going to put him down to 7, getting us another land here. We draw on our turn. We get a Molten Collapse. So, going to swing in with the Wandering Mind again. We're managing our life totals pretty close here. I'm going to use the Molten Collapse to kill one of their followers here. One of their masterminds. Now, we'll see what they go for. They attack in with Mastermind, puts us down to 6. We can cycle one of these cards. Since we haven't drawn a card this turn, we won't trigger the Fairy Mastermind. We find the Bring to Light and the Tyrant Scorn. Right, so gonna swing in with both creatures. They could double activate Mutavaults here to try and block our stuff. So I'm gonna wait till both of them are activated. And then before damage, I'm gonna use the Tyrant Scorn to kill one of them. I'm also counter checking here. So I'll chump block the Biotech, go down to 3. I'm going to play this land tap so we can hold up a cycle from the Tri-land to stay alive. Opponent uses a Mosswood Dread Knight to go down to 2, so they are dead to a Zimone activation on our next turn here. And they see it and they pass. Right. Well, we could have killed them also into speed because we could have cycled the land, then used Zimone's ability to stack Biotech to go off. I have no idea what our opponent is playing, so I'm going to run it back. It looks like a Sultai Demons mid-range list, like Sultai Demons, which is a pretty cool idea. I like Zimone and Dina as like an additional way, because the room would trigger... Man, how much damage would that be? Because if the room triggers, and Zimone and Dina are on the field, and you control a demon, you would drain them for 2, then drain them for 4, and gain... Well, you gain 4. Ooh, that's actually an interesting thing. The colors are intense though, so... This hand is not keepable. We don't have anything castable. I do consider it, but we are going to have to mulligan. Right, we'll keep this. We'll get rid of the K command, and we'll hold on to 2 solid pieces of removal that can answer their main value engine, which is probably the room, I'm assuming. We get the turn 2 Fortsies here. They take away the Vanishing Verse, so we are just flooding out here. Opponent plays the Odawara, and there's a Mosswood Dread Knight. Okay, so let's play. We need... All our land types are covered, so let's play a basic to preserve life. And then we can cycle the Triome in the end step. They cast a Mosswood Dread Knight, so let's cycle the Triome. Alright, so... We need to get to this Bring to Light. So what I'm going to do to bait them here is I'm going to play this land, and I'm going to use the Molten Collapse to kill the Dread Knight. Now, if they want the Dread Knight, they have to use the Adventure, which will mean that they're less likely to have something else. It also means, since they've gone straight to their end step there, that they're not finding their lands. So we have 5 colors. Let's go for a full reload here. Our opponent hasn't used land drops, so they probably have a ton of removal, so we'll get a full spread of cards here. Verdict probably goes here. We want to hold the superior board presence. They draw. They don't immediately play the land, which is unfortunate. They Dread Knight. They don't find another land, and they concede. I felt bad for that second game, but it was a cool idea of a deck.